Hey dudes, what's happening? It's Michael Beck with 1010's Podcast. I'm here today because I'm going to talk a little bit about the Villians kit that I bought for my RX-7. I've got the original knuckles for my car here, and I have the knuckles that Villians sent me that have been modified, as well as the other parts in the kit. So I'm going to change perspectives on the camera right now and show you what that looks like. Alright, and here we are. So if you guys don't know, Villians is a company that kind of does grassroots drifting parts for S chassis and RX-7s. I purchased their kit because I had originally talked about modifying my own knuckles for the RX-7, and then just decided, based on the fact that this appears to be cast iron, I'm fairly certain that it is cast iron, and welding and trying to make this work and make sure that it was safe, I didn't feel like I could 100% say that that was within my capabilities. So I decided that I would buy the Villians Drift Kit instead for the FC RX7. Now this kit costs about $315 if you send in your knuckles. If you don't send in your knuckles, it's $415, and of course that's basically the core charge. So if at some point you decide that you do want to send in your knuckles, which I do intend to send these to them so that they have them to replace these that they modified, you'll get your $100 back. Now I think on the S chassis cars, those are in a lot higher demand, and so I think that core charge might be $150, and I know that they really struggle to get cores for S chassis. So in order to get your kit quickly, if you've got a 240, you may want to go ahead and send your knuckles in, because I don't know, I think they struggle to stock knuckles basically, and of course people aren't manufacturing them anymore. So let's jump into the big thing, which is what makes this kit so that you can have more angle in your car, basically. So as I alluded to, this is the knuckle for the that's going to be going into my car. It's the knuckle that's been modified by Villians. Now basically these are stock knuckles, and they move the tie rod connection point by basically shortening this piece, which you can see, and I'll bring these a little bit closer together. This tie rod connection point on the one that they've modified is extremely short compared to the original knuckle. I mean, they move it all the way back here. I think they claim about 55 degrees of steering angle with this modification. We'll see when we put it in the car. I took some before pictures. On the RX-7, the steering angle is very poor. So this should be a huge, I think it's about 30 degrees. So this is a huge difference to add 20 or 25 degrees of steering angle. But otherwise, I mean, it's just it's a stock knuckle. They clean them up and they paint them. As you can see, the ones I took out of the car are kind of grimy, so that's cool that they do that. Some other things included in the kit. They've got the tie rod ends, of course, and then this is the rest of that tie rod end. And then they also include, this is I think this is like their Gen 2. Basically their Gen 2 lower A-arm extension. Now if you've got an S5 RX7, FC RX7, this isn't going to work. You need S4 lower control arms, because those basically have bolts in them that you can unbolt and put this piece in and then bolt it back together where that ball joint is. For whatever reason, the S5s didn't have that. Now the reason I call these the V2 is because they're curved, so this adds more caster to the front, which obviously is good. The most amount of caster you can get, the better. This is like a prototype ball joint extension that they threw in. I don't know exactly how this is going to work. I'm going to look at this on the car once we install the kit, but visually I'm kind of struggling to see how that where that goes exactly, how that's going to work. It's just not clicking with my brain. I've seen these in before. These are straightforward. So basically now I think what we'll do is switch over to the car and see how the installation is going, which is already in progress. So now we're standing underneath the RX-7 with the Villians Drift Kit installed. The main component of this kit is going to be these knuckles, as we discussed before. It's going to move that tie rod connection point inward, which is going to give you additional angle. Now when that tie rod point moves in, what happens is you need a longer tie rod in order to be able to hit that point, and then also when you're on full lock, have enough tie rod to basically control your wheels. So what you're going to do is you're going to have to install those inner and outer tie rods that are included in that kit in order to get that additional length. that's pretty straightforward. Now, once this kit's in, the other piece you're going to have to add is that lower A-arm extension, and this is that piece that, basically it's an aluminum piece that's included in that kit. This particular one is not the one that was in my kit. I got this one from my buddy Zach. It's a straight piece, and the reason that we put the straight one in instead of the one that it adds additional caster is because we were having some wheel fitment issues. So that's basically the main issue that we ran into while installing this. These wheels are 17 by 9 and I think a plus 15 offset. It's a pretty large wheel for the RX7 as far as width, and we're having problems with the tire rubbing on a couple of spots that I'll show you. Now, when you're full left or full right, the front of the wheel is not the problem. It's more a matter of when you are turned inward, you start to hit on the frame, as well as there is a brake caliper, or excuse me, a brake line holder right here. Basically, it holds that brake line. Your tire's going to rub on that. Now, if you decide to run a 16 or you're going to run a little narrower tire, this is a 235, it may not be an issue, but with this particular wheel setup, we did have quite a few clearance problems. Right now, there is a 7mm spacer on here. It may do a little bit better with a 10 or a 15mm spacer, but whatever you decide to do, you're going to have to play around with this a little bit to get the right fitment. The other thing to keep in mind too is the more that you start bringing this wheel out, the more fitment issues you're going to have with your fenders if you don't have extended over fenders. So it's not going to be a plug and play kit, which is pretty common when it comes to drift cars. You're going to have to do a little bit of fabrication, a little bit of massaging to make it work, but with this kit you're going to get another 20 to 25 millimeters worth of steering angle. So for the money, it's really a great kit. The other thing to keep in mind, we didn't put the these inner spacers in. I don't think you can see them from here, but basically when you connect these inner tie rods, they come with a little 4mm spacer. We didn't put those in. I can't decide that those really do anything. In my mind, they don't, because if you put that 4mm spacer in, you're going to have to adjust your outer tie rod ends in order to compensate for that 4mm, so you don't have 4mm of additional toe. So I really can't, in my mind, it really doesn't make any sense to me. Plus then you've just got fewer threads inside of that inner tie rod to where the rack connects. But so I don't really think that works. But a quick overview on this stuff too while we're here. We've gone all AN fittings on our power steering because we were having issues with the Granny's kit. So everything in here is all AN. All the lines going to the power steering pump, and then the lines that run on the outside of the rack that basically push the pistons on both sides. That's why we had this boot off, because we thought we had a leak, but I think we've gotten everything tightened up, and it looks good. So power steering's in the car, the Villians kit's on the car, everything looks good, and if you guys are thinking about the Villians kit, I'd say it's probably pretty good value for $300. So that's it.